All right, thanks, Dustin. Move my slides to where they need to be here. Dustin is me. I am Maskell and work as a senior marketing specialist here at Nex-Tech. Have about 18 years in with the company, have worked in a few different roles here, from community development to supervising retail stores and working with clients now directly on their marketing goals. Fortunately, we do have another Nex-Tech employee that is on with us today, Stacy Stoltz, who has a large amount of regulatory experience. So if any of you have some real challenging questions that you throw our way here towards the end, we may even bring her on as well. So a little bit of a roadmap for you today. Let me try to get this to change. There we go. What we're talking about. Well, first we want to give a broadband consumer label overview, and then we want to spend a little bit of time talking about just how Nex-Tech is complying with this mandate, and then get into the weeds a little bit, have a breakdown of really the top 5 things that we think all telcos should really be considering as we go through this process. Now that broadband labels have been a topic of conversation for several months, I'm sure this isn't new news for anyone. However, if it is, I definitely want to do a quick recap. So all internet service providers, both fixed and mobile, are required to have prepared and brought forth broadband consumer labels present at their point of sale. So the large providers, those over 100,000 subscribers, had to have these in place by April 10th. And then the smaller rural providers, where all of us fit in, those under 100,000 subscribers, of course, have to have ours placed by October 10th. So what does this really mean, and what are they? Well, one of the places, if you haven't familiarized yourself with yet, you really should, the FCC's website, fcc.com/broadband labels. Here you're going to find all of the requirements and how to be compliant with what the FCC is asking. So the why, right? Why are we doing this? As Aubrey said, like them or love them, right? Ultimately, it is to create more transparency when it comes to information about all of our internet offerings. And really, it should help us small rural providers, although it's one more regulation to follow, which I think is maybe where the frustration sometimes comes from here. We all know that there is a plethora of ways that we rise to the top when we really sit down and compare ourselves to the competitors that fall in our areas. And so really, we should utilize this to make it that much more obvious. The next slide I want to show you is just a sample broadband label from the FCC's website. So that fcc.gov/broadband labels. This label here it's one that I split in half to fit onto one slide here. This really is the exact format that the FCC wants us to follow. So for all standalone internet services that are currently marketed to prospects and customers, this is what it should look like. Customizations really aren't allowed. If you're like me, if you've been out to some of the big players' websites and looking at what they're doing, there's some that follow this to a T, and there's a few that kind of did their own thing. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. But our recommendation is definitely to stick to these guidelines. The expectation is that these will be in English unless you market in other languages, and then they should also be present in those other languages as well. So as far as where these labels need to be displayed, it's at point of sale. That could be a few different things, right? Most often we're looking at website. As far as the actual label goes, it has to have these key components that are listed here. So things from prices, speeds, all the fees, whether they're one-time or monthly, your data allowances, and other information that's shown here. It should also be displayed prominently. So I mentioned just a moment ago websites. When online, the FCC is stating that these need to be in close proximity to the associated plan. And again, prominently so, not buried under a link or an icon. They just need to show up right there alongside that plan. The other thing is that these do have to be machine readable. So that is necessary for ADA compliance and for third parties to be able to collect and aggregate the data. So the first poll I want to launch today, we have a couple of them. I'm just really curious for those of you that are on the call, On a scale of 1 to 5, how prepared do you feel for this rollout? Are you a 1? Are you just, not prepared at all? Haven't really sat down and looked at anything quite yet, not sure what you're going to do. 5, you're done. You have them in place. They are at your point of sale. They are where they need to be. A 3 might be, we've identified all of our speeds in a list, but we're just really not sure how or where we're going to place them on our website.
Hey, Maggie.
Aubrey? Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt you really quick.
Yeah.
Your video froze at the beginning. Could you just, while we're kind of at a natural break here during the poll, could you
Sure.
maybe like reshare your screen and try it again just so the audio unfreezes or the video unfreezes?
Yeah, I will sure do that.
Yes, thank you. I was going to ask Maggie to see if she could maybe turn camera off and back on. That might help. Also, we are going to do the poll in the Q&A section, and I started a discussion. How prepared are you 1 to 5? So if y'all can comment a number between 1 and 5, and we'll use that as our poll.
I see movement again, Maggie. That's good.
All right, good. I apologize. I don't know what happened there. Let me get this presentation back going here.
And Tanya said 2. Marie said 3-ish. Kind of sounds good. Kind of right there in the middle. Dustin, if you were rating us as Nex-Tech, where are we? 4, 5?
I'm just posting right now. I put a 5. I feel pretty confident.
Okay. Cool. Clint says 4. Good job, Wabash. Brandon 3. Melissa 3. Dustin 5. Rory 4. Good job, KCTC. Very good. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, lots of people right through the middle.
Great, great. That's a good place to be. If anyone is at a 1, that's definitely the time to get to moving. So seeing that most people are a little bit further along is a feel good for sure. Let me move to my next slide. Am I still doing good or am I frozen again?
You look beautiful.
Awesome. All right. So what is Nex-Tech doing? This is really the next portion of this we wanted to dive into. Us being a broadband provider as well as, ad agency, we get the benefit of seeing this, from both sides. We've been working on our label process for the last few months, as well as looking at how we can help other telcos with this process. So really this is our interpretation of what is needed and how we'll be placing the labels. So the depiction you're seeing on your screen is what it's going to look like when we launch it on our site. Right now it's in a staging environment. But this is what is going to display after a consumer selects the name of the town that they're looking for services in, as that is the place in which we all need to be showcasing these labels, is what applies to that customer based off their location. For some other websites, this might be after an address is validated. It might be after they pick a zip code. Or maybe you have the same service availability no matter where the location is, and so you just display it on your internet page. So regardless, our understanding is that they really need to show up when someone is able to pick the packages, the speed, the pricing that applies to them based off of where their location is. Something you'll want to consider is that the FCC order does state that they require the ability for the consumer to make side-by-side comparisons of the various service offerings. In this instance, Nex-Tech does look out a little bit because for our residential fiber offering, we only have 1 speed. It's a gig. So that's why you're only seeing the 1 label shown here. Now, when I mentioned before that these need to be placed at point of sale, I mentioned website because that's where I was taking this conversation next, but there's a couple other positions, right? There's in-person sales and there's over the phone. We at Nex-Tech are going to do hard copies for our CSRs to utilize. I know I've talked to some other telcos that have some display monitors around their office locations they're planning on having them on, or maybe just spin the CSR monitor so that way they can take a look at it when in person. But the other thing is also over the phone. So the expectation is that, as you're walking a potential sign up over the phone through your packages and offerings, that you read the label to them as well. So one of the first things that Nex-Tech did look at is how many labels do we need? That's probably the very first thing that everyone should do. And that's actually our next poll question. So Aubrey, I'll have you go ahead and launch that. It's the basic place to start because there is a lot of considerations that pop up once you have an idea of just how many you're looking at.
The way we're going to do this poll is just like the little thumbs up on the range of labels that you'll need. So the options are not sure yet, 1 to 10 labels, 11 to 20 labels, and then 21 to 40, and then 40 plus. So just do a thumbs up on the range that you fall in. Or if you're not sure yet, choose that one. 11 to 20, 21 to 40. Gotta get these typed in here. And last one, 40 plus labels. Whee.
Thank you, Aubrey.
You're welcome.
Give everybody a moment.
See, we've got Marie and Rory both said 1 to 10. Got Dustin and Clint on 11 to 20. Yep. One person said 21 to 40. Melissa needs 2 labels. That's pretty good. That might be our record, actually.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to watch these come in.
Yeah, sure. And we can even move on from there. Really, this is a perfect segue into the next part of our conversation, which is looking at the top 5 considerations to make as we're all looking to, meet the requirements of this. I think a lot of people have asked, where in the world should I start? Or maybe a number of the people that's on this call is, okay, we've done most of what I think needs done, but what else am I missing? What else do we have to do? So that's where this next part's going to take us. So again, the how many labels, this is definitely the best place to start. Because the FCC order states that any internet offer, residential or business, there was some confusion on the business part originally. If it's a one-off negotiated contract, not necessary to have a label there. But if it's business speeds that you market, you do need to have a label. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, it's standalone internet, so not anything that's bundled. Standalone, residential, business, marketed, needs a label. So you'll need to think through anything that is different as far as speed, price, latency, all of those different things. Anything that's different needs a different label. And if you change this offering, once we all launch these on October 10th, then you will need a new label and you'll have to archive the old label. The FCC has shared in their order that they can request to see the old label for up to 2 years. The next part of how many labels is if you need a lot, you may want to consider consolidation. That's one of the things as I've been talking to various clients about this, as we looked at some things internally, we looked at what can we do to help ourselves here consolidate. It's a wonderful opportunity to take a look at our offerings and see if some internet tier updates need to happen. Thinking if you have customers on 10 meg, 25 meg, and these are customers that maybe have the capability to have much higher speeds, it's probably a time to take a look and say, why are we offering this when we know they may not be having the best experience on those connections? So once you've decided on your plans, you definitely need to make sure you've developed a unique plan identifier number that then is associated with each of those labels. The other part and piece of this that maybe actually should be number 1 is dedicating or assigning employees to the role. Sometimes it takes you to get in the weeds just a little bit before you decide what you need here, but you may need a chief broadband label officer. Maybe not quite that crazy, but we have found here at Nex-Tech that there was a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and we really needed to just bring it back to 1 or 2 people that were going to be responsible for this requirement and make it clear to everybody. So that way, especially when things were initially discussed, there just seemed to be a lot of gray areas, a lot of different ways to understand certain parts of the requirements, that it just made a lot more sense to have one dedicated person in charge for sharing that and communicating across our group at the company. The next part of this is really defining your plan, making a timeline. October 10th is just going to be here before we know it. So it's definitely time to start to solidify these plans. Due to the machine readability requirement that is for the labels for the website, it's just a small complication, right? It's just not quite as easy as uploading a JPEG and calling it a day. It must be coded to your website. I know a lot of different telcos use someone outside of their organization to help them with their website. And if that's the case, the last thing you want to be doing is sitting in a queue waiting for somebody to update your internet page, and it's October 9th. So that's definitely something to be thinking through. Number 5 is just kind of my what else bucket, because there's always more, right? There's always more to consider. You don't want to forget that the FCC is also asking you to document your broadband label training to your employees. So you need to have a plan identified where you will, be explaining this requirement to them and also where their duties fall. But I think we can all understand, just as much as it's taken all of us to really understand the why and the how and the what and the where and all the questions that come with this, our employees may not understand as well. So we definitely need to communicate that to them. But then the consumers, our customers, our prospects, they're probably not going to understand either. They're just all of a sudden going to start to see what looks like the side of a cereal box on your website. So I think we need to spend some time educating them on what they're looking at and use that to play to our benefit, right? To actually teach them what to look at in regards to comparing labels, so that when they are comparing us to our competitors, they're looking at the right things. So thinking about materials, whether it's a flyer, social media post, I think will be a big one, videos that we can utilize to showcase to them what they're looking at, and then how to accurately compare those, I believe will be pretty important. All right, on this slide, I'm gonna let Dustin take over here.
Dustin, you're muted.
Thank
The
you.
joys of webinars.
Appreciate it.
Happens to the best of us.
Yes.
So Maggie mentioned a little bit about kind of what Nex-Tech has been going through in our process. So I wanted to share a little bit more with you. As all of you or many of you are clients of Nex-Tech, we are offering this as a service to clients to help with this service. So kind of a little bit of the background history of kind of why we chose to do that. Some of you may or may not know from working with your leads and visiting with different people at Nex-Tech, we're going through kind of a major software conversion at this point. We've actually chosen to use a Salesforce platform. And actually through that application, there really wasn't going to be an application or a tool available through that platform to work on the broadband labels. I know a lot of other billing vendors and some other people are actually working on a platform to help with that. So we knew we were going to need a long-term solution for it. Some of our customers may need a solution for it. So we actually worked with the provider, and they actually developed a broadband label maker for us that is what we're going to be using going forward. So there's a link out there. I welcome you guys go out and take a look and look at it. We've tried to make it as simple as possible. Maggie, if you want to go on to the next slide. So what we're really considering, ours is, we're calling it a really a white glove service. We really want to be able to take care of everything, keep it very simple for you. There will be a simple template spreadsheet that we have created for the system that's very similar to a lot of the other templates out there. We're hoping that this template, there's still a little bit of more information to come out, specifically on the machine readable piece of it, as far as having that available out there. So we're hoping this template will then be that format that will be uploadable to there, as far as that machine readable piece of that piece of it. So we kept it really simple. Again, we have 3 simple packages based on the amount of labels that you think you would need. It's basically from 1 to 10, 11 to 20, and then 21 to 40. If somebody does need more than 40 labels, we would work with them on a solution to basically fit their needs at that point in time. Next slide, Maggie. So really looking at the application itself, we really want to keep it, like I said, as simple as possible for all of the customers that we're helping with. Basically, all that we're asking as far as is that you need to fill out the template, get that information to us. We'll basically create all the labels for you. We'll get them put on your website, and we'll also manage all the archives for you as well too. And kind of what we're looking at doing is like all the archive labels, like if you change a price and you need to archive a label, those will be basically unlimited on the system, and we'll manage the archival piece of all of that for you. So if some point in the future you do actually need a copy of a label in the future, just get with your lead, contact us, and we'll get that label for you so you have it. So again, like I said, we're really trying to make it as simple as possible. Any updates or pricing changes or speed changes you need to make to a label, just work with your lead and we can get that updated. So basically when we make the change in the system, it'll basically be code that goes directly back to the label that's on your site. So it'll update automatically. So again, like I said, we've tried to make it as seamless as possible. And I think with that, we will transition to questions.